diligence, used 15 times in 14 verses of the Bible. Diligence is making it well with my soul and mind, so that it brings righteous joy and gladness to my being.
The oldest book in the Bible displays a fight with God. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Rod Hembry, and this is the weekend edition of the Quick Study television program. Today we continue in the book of Job as we go through the Bible, and we are looking at Job chapter 10 to 13, our reading assignment for this day, where we're going to talk about a fight with God. Job gets honest with the Lord. And we learn a lot from this today and how to deal with God when we are in a time it seems like He is dealing with us badly. Stay there as we continue. Corey is here with Bible archaeology and history.
Well, Job is a very interesting book when it comes to the history of where it came from and how it was written. So today, we're going to be taking a look at some potential authors and compilers of the book of Job, and then we're going to be testing them and see if they hold up to scrutiny.
Sounds good. Look forward to that, Corey. Also, Cosmic Mysteries. Ryan, the science guy, is here. Ryan?
Well, today we're going to start looking at some of the planets right in our very own solar system. We're also going to look at some of the standard evolutionary models that are used to explain these planets' existence.
All this and more coming up on the weekend edition of Quick Study Television. Stay there. Something on the Bible codes coming up later on. We'll talk about it. In the meantime, let's study on. Here's Corey.
Today, as we study through Job chapters 10 through 13, you'll notice that Job is written in a very interesting and very different style from what you've read so far in the scriptures, if you've been following with us from Genesis all the way up until this point. Now, what we're going to do today is actually take a look at the different traditions and theories behind who wrote and compiled the book of Job. Take a look at this. The biblical book of Job is perhaps the most curious of the entire Old Testament. Often grouped with the wisdom books of the Bible, it is clear that Job is ancient, and as such, reflects what was important in its specific ancient culture. As with any book of the Bible, the question arises, where did we get this book, and who wrote it in the form we have today? Since no direct authorship is claimed within the book, we must look to the people to whom the Old Testament was entrusted. And Jewish tradition claims Moses as the compiler of Job. There have been some naysayers to this historical tradition that have claimed a better answer lies during the time period of King Solomon. They say that because Job is grouped with wisdom literature from that time, it was also probably written then. But all of this conjecture doesn't have to be unfounded. When direction from tradition is given, such as Moses as Job's author, clues can be drawn from the text itself to see how probable that explanation is. In the case of Job, the greatest testimony to Moses as author comes from the book's antiquity. Notice that in the book of Job, there are no allusions to or mentions of the nation of Israel, Abraham, Moses, any of the judges or kings or prophets. There would very likely be at least an allusion to an organized Israel if it was written during Solomon's day. The book of Job also makes no mention of the Mosaic law, the backbone of the nation and religion of Israel. And Job makes his own sacrifices, not going through a priest or Levite, a practice condemned after the time of Moses and the given law. Jewish tradition, passed down through the ages, teaches that Moses collected the story of Job during his time in ancient Midian. From examining the text, there is nothing to suggest we should doubt this conclusion.
It's time to explore the wise guys of the Bible from the book of Job and learn how to be wise guys from this wisdom book. Now, deep personal pain has a way of changing our personalities. Agony of soul tends to drive us into the hard crisis of bitterness towards a higher power that has control over the masters of our pain. We often say, "Why, God? How long, O Lord?" Well, every seasoned believer knows that the reality of personality change during times of pain is useful. But it is the wise guy who understands that the God of heaven is big enough to take our cries of anger, sorrow, and turn them around. If there is anything we can learn from the Bible, it is that the wise guys in the Bible learn how to cry out to God, even if it means fighting with Him. Now, Job chapter 10 is a pointer and a powerful fight with God from Job to teach us wisdom in prayer.
My soul loathes my life. I will give free course to my complaint. I will speak in the bitterness of my soul. I will say to God, "Do not condemn me. Show me why you contend with me. Does it seem good to you that you should oppress, that you should despise the work of your hands and smile on the counsel of the wicked? Do you have eyes of flesh, or do you see as man sees? Are your days like the days of a mortal man? Are your years like the days of a mighty man, that you should seek for my iniquity and search out my sin, although you know that I am not wicked, and there is no one who can deliver from your hand? Your hands have made me and fashioned me, an intricate unity. Yet you would destroy me. Remember, I pray, that you have made me like clay, and will you turn me into dust again? Did you not pour me out like milk and curdle me like cheese, clothe me with skin and flesh, and knit me together with bones and sinews? You have granted me life and favor, and your care has preserved my spirit. Job chapter 10, verses 1 through 12.
Sometimes people ask me, what is your favorite passage in the whole Bible? And it's always surprising to them to say it is the book of Job. And people say, well, why in the world is Job your favorite passage in the Bible? Well, actually, Job and Ecclesiastes are two of my favorite books in the Bible. Now, where we're at in Job, I'll explain why in a moment, is that Job is a righteous man. He's done well. He's served the Lord. He's a good father. He sacrifices to God. He's doing all the right things. And suddenly, in the course of a few days and a few weeks, he loses everything. And it looks as if God has completely abandoned him. But what we learn from reading the first part of Job is that God has not abandoned him, but rather God is testing him. And so, beloved, we cannot always tell what is going on in someone's heart by looking at the external circumstances, like his friends did. But Job begins to cry out with a new kind of prayer. And that's what I want to talk about today. I call it a fight with God, or that is to say, a powerful plea to God. Now, with that in mind, let's take a look at Job chapter 10, beginning with verse 1. Let's look at the first two verses that we've already read. Job says, "My soul loathes my life. I will give free course to my complaint. I will speak in the bitterness of my soul, and I will say to God, do not condemn me. Show me why you contend with me. Now, what's interesting to me about this passage is that Job has no hesitation to speak the truth to God. Job knew God, and he has no hesitation in telling him really what he thinks. Now, God is going to talk to Job at the end of the book, and it's going to be a very interesting time in which the words of God wash all of the wrong thinking about God off of him with a blast of his truth. But until that time, God allows Job to speak out of the bitterness and the complaint of his heart. With that, I want to come to this study-wise point. When we cry out to God in deep, painful desperation, you want to know something? Our prayers are powerfully answered. See, Job would cry out to God, and he said, I want to speak to God. I want to contend with God. Well, let me tell you something. In Job chapter 38, that is exactly what happened. You see, there's a kind of level to our prayer when we get into those deep, desperate places. It seems like it takes on a new kind of power because all we focus on is, Lord, why is this happening or what's going on? And we learn how to pray like we've never learned how to pray in the depths of deep sorrow and trials. It's amazing. Now let's go on to verse 3. It says, does it seem good to you, as he speaks to God, that you should oppress, that you should despise the work of your hands and smile on the counsel of the wicked? Do you have eyes of flesh, or do you see as man sees? Are your days like the days of a mortal man, and are your years like the days of a mighty man? That you should seek for my iniquity and search out my sin, although you know that I am not wicked, and there is no one who can deliver me from your hand. Now here's the point. Job continues his complaint with God, but what he says is, when we cry out in deep depression and desperation, our prayers get real. Getting real with God is the beginning of real healing. See, there's something about pain and there's something about agony in our lives that makes us get real. That's why oftentimes, and this is, don't misunderstand me, but as a pastor, I like doing funerals more than I like doing weddings. And the reason is because when you're doing a funeral, everybody's looking at the casket and they're thinking pretty seriously, that could be me in there. And so it's easy to talk about the things of God. At a wedding, everybody wants to party. Now let's take a look at Job chapter 10, verses 8 through 12. Here's what the scripture says. Job continues his prayer. Your hands have made and fashioned me an intricate unity, yet you would destroy me, Lord? Remember, I prayed that you have made me like clay, and that you turn me into dust again. Do you not pour out on me like milk and curdle me like cheese, clothe me with skin and flesh, and knit me together with bones and sinew, and you have granted me life and favor, and your care has preserved my spirit? What is Job getting at? Job is saying, Lord, you know that I'm just a human being. How many times have you said that to God? God, how much can I possibly take? I'm just a human being. Job is saying, God, at least let me die. At least let my spirit go. It is so much suffering, I can't possibly bear it all. But God, of course, knows exactly how much we can bear. And that brings me to the third and the final study-wise point. When we cry out, beloved, in deep desperation, we are forced to recognize the absolute authority of God and His healing power. Notice the prayer at the end of this passage. Job begins to confess the reality of God. You are the one who made me, Lord. You are the one who can heal me. You are the one. And this confession comes out in the form of an authority, assigning absolute authority to God. Now, this is a perfect picture of how trials, if we do not become bitter and we are honest with God with our feelings and we let Him hear our feelings, we don't harbor them in our hearts when things go bad and hold it against them and keep a grudge, but we say, Lord, why? How long, O Lord? Just like the prophets did, just like Job did, that we ascribe, comes out of us, ascribing honor and authority to God, and He will heal us and He will help us, beloved. Always remember this, what we learned from Job. Always be honest with God.
Earlier on in the program, you and I took a look at the different theories and traditions behind who wrote or authored or compiled the Old Testament book of Job. Now, this book is really unique and intriguing, and we came to the conclusion after testing it that there really is no viable reason to dismiss the tradition and the history that Moses was actually the compiler of the book of Job. Right now, you and I are going to take a look at the career of Moses and see where it fits in his life.
If the Bible is what it claims to be, a collection of books recording the accurate history of the Hebrew people and their interactions with God and the world, then it is unquestionably the most unique book in human history. Due to this, it has come under direct scrutiny, and attempts to explain away much of its surprising accuracy and miraculous survival throughout time have been made. One such attempt says that Moses was not and could not be the author of the first 5 books of the Bible, that these were written much later by several different people. Admittedly, it is an amazing thing to think about ancient Moses writing and then Israel preserving these books right up until today. But where do the facts lie? Could Moses have written them, as the books themselves and all historical traditions claim? We find that Moses, trained with the elite of Egypt, would indeed have had extensive literary know-how, including the ability to read and write. So did Moses have time to compile such histories, 40 years living in the Sinai wilderness with his nation. As their leader, he would have access to all of their written family records and histories needed to construct Genesis. And importantly, Moses had motivation as the nation's leader to create for them a solid, tangible reminder of their identity and the laws of their God. Did Moses write the Pentateuch? We have no reason to doubt it.
Quick Study TV presents the Quick Study Wise Guide, published every month. 12 Bible commentaries on the passages we cover through the television program, and going through the Bible in 1 year. This all-original material is packaged in a beautiful booklet containing 32 pages of exclusive Bible commentary from Rod Hembry. The Quick Study Wise Guide is not available in bookstores or online anywhere except through the BibleDiscoveryTV.com website. Don't miss a day of your journey through the Bible. When you support regularly with a gift of any amount, we will automatically send you the Quick Study Wise Guide every single month. To write and give, send to P.O. Box 150, Murraysville, Pennsylvania 15668 0150. In Canada, P.O. Box 456, Orangeville, Ontario L9W5G2. You can call at 519-940-8338 or 724-733-8336. You can also give safely online at BibleDiscoveryTV.com.
Thanks for staying with us. This is the weekend edition of the Quick Study television program. Here to help us with science is Rye, the science guy with Cosmic Mysteries.
Well, we're going to look at a few of the planets right here in our own solar system. And we're also going to look at the standard evolutionary models that have been created to explain their existence. Now, I want to preview this report by explaining that the evolutionary models have been created to explain these planets' existence without a creator. Now, today we begin with a tiny little planet called Mercury. Mercury is the smallest of the 8 planets in our solar system. In fact, even Saturn's moon Titan and Jupiter's moon Ganymede are larger. Yet it is this small moon-like planet that completely defies evolutionary explanation. Besides the Earth, Mercury has the highest density of all the other known planets. So dense, in fact, that it is believed Mercury's core accounts for about 75% of the planet's diameter. However, according to evolutionary models of planet formation, Mercury cannot be this dense. This problem is so significant that most astrophysicists have actually given up on Mercury and have admitted that they cannot explain its high density using slow and gradual processes. Instead, they have suggested some sort of catastrophic cosmic collision. Cosmic collisions are used over and over again by evolutionists to try and explain what their worldview cannot explain. For example, evolution cannot explain the retrograde rotation of Venus, therefore some catastrophic collision must have occurred that changed its rotation. The planet Uranus is tilted on its axis, but evolution cannot explain this, so something must have hit it, changing its tilt. The atmosphere of Mars is too thin for evolutionary models, therefore something must have collided with Mars, causing the atmosphere we observe today. These cosmic collisions are a common theme among evolutionists. But even if something did hit Mercury, causing a density change, there is still an even greater problem. Mercury has a magnetic field. In fact, most of the planets have a magnetic field. But how could these magnetic fields have lasted billions of years? Evolutionists and long-age creationists believe in the dynamo theory. The idea is that any planets with magnetic fields must have molten metal cores, and through a complex series of events, fluid motions inside the core may generate a magnetic field. Although the dynamo theory sounds good, recent planetary discoveries have revealed that this model cannot be true for them. Even the Earth, which the dynamo model was originally created to explain, creates problems. According to the dynamo model, Mercury must have fluid motions in its core. This means that the core must be molten. However, even evolutionists admit that Mercury is so small that the general opinion is that the planet should have frozen solid eons ago. So according to evolutionary models, since Mercury does not have a molten core, it cannot have a magnetic field, but it does. To try and overcome this problem, some have suggested that perhaps Mercury's core is not iron but instead iron sulfide. This might solve the problem. However, in solving this, another one is created. The evolutionary explanation of solar system formation, known as the solar nebula theory, insists that volatile elements like sulfur cannot be this close to the Sun, so there should not be any iron sulfide in Mercury. Therefore, in solving the problem for Mercury, they have undermined their very own model. Indeed, magnetism is a huge issue for evolution. One evolutionist laments that magnetism is almost as much of a puzzle now as it was when William Gilbert wrote his classic text concerning magnetism, magnetic bodies, and the great magnet Earth in 1600. Explaining Mercury's magnetic field in a younger solar system, on the other hand, is very possible. In fact, biblical creationist and PhD physicist Dr. Russell Humphreys has done considerable work in this area, and has even created a model based off of a 6,000-year-old solar system that successfully calculated the strengths of the planet's present-day magnetic fields. Mercury is a small but mighty testimony to a recent creation. God truly uses the weak things of the world to confound the wise.
So the evolutionary model fails to explain the magnetic field of Mercury, but the creation model by Dr. Humphreys has had wonderful success. His model is based on a solar system that is only thousands of years old, not billions, and interestingly has correctly determined the present-day strengths of the magnetic fields of the planets and also many of the moons. Dr. Humphreys believes in a literal interpretation of the Bible, which requires an age of only thousands of years. His model fits the data. I hope you join me next weekend when we continue this study.
Okay, and Ryan also has a course, a creation science course on Bible Discovery Seminary. Ryan, what is the course? Describe the course for us.
Well, in the course, we take a look at the two main worldviews, that is evolution and creation. And we establish that evolution is actually not a fact, but is actually a faith-based belief system. We establish that in the course. Then we take a look at the scientific data and see which worldview makes more sense.
All right, very good. And by the way, I recommend that we have a number of pastors now who are taking that course and helping them with creation science. Corey also does a course there on Bible history and archaeology. Corey, describe your course.
Well, the first course that we have in the seminary is actually a foundational knowledge builder that has to do with biblical history and archaeology. So you're going to find out exactly the history that the Bible covers, the different time periods that are in there. And then we're going to equip you with knowledge of the main archaeological finds of the last couple hundred years that really have solidified the accuracy of the Bible as a historical text.
All of this on Bible Discovery Seminary. You can find us at BibleDiscoveryTV.com. Encourage you to join us and be a part of that. Speaking of also learning more things, we have the Bible Codes DVD available this month. In fact, I'd like to give you the address for a gift of $25 or more. Corey and Janice and myself did an hour-long DVD on the Bible Codes. What is that all about? If you'd like a copy of that one-hour DVD, you can write to us with a gift of $25 or more to P.O. Box 150, Murraysville, Pennsylvania, 156680150, 724-733-8336 in the United States. In Canada and other parts of the world, we encourage you to use the Canadian address, which is P.O. Box 456, Orangeville, Ontario, L9W5G2. You can call at 519-940-8338. You can also give online and access the Bible Codes DVD online by going to BibleDiscoveryTV.com. That's BibleDiscoveryTV.com. Most in our modern world pray the same way we play the lottery numbers. We throw the prayer out there and maybe it'll hit. This is wrong and frankly faithless. It is God's wisdom at work in us when we recognize that the trials and the tribulations we endure make us more powerful in prayer, even though we might feel weaker in soul. Pain has a way of making it real when it comes to prayer. Job knew God, so he knew that he could talk to God in a real way. We do not pray to go into troubles, but when they overtake us, the wise soul always learns the power of real and desperate prayer. With that we pray, Lord, teach me about who you really are, and help me to get real when I pray and seek your face. In our Wise Up segment today, we are looking at the book of Proverbs, and today our reading comes from Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3, where it says, "Commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established." This is interesting. Now, what does that mean? That means that you come to Christ and you say, "Lord, everything that I do in my life, I want to commit it to you. I want to give it to you." And then there's a promise that says, when you give your life to the Lord like that, your thoughts will be established. You will not be plagued by all kinds of these things that come up in the human soul, that you will have a sure foundation as you begin to seek God. So let me encourage you today to come to Christ. If your thoughts are troubling you today, if you're struggling with depression or despair, well, God has a great answer for you, and that is His Spirit. But God also respects the free will of your choice. He says that if you come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, I will give you rest. Who is that person we come to? Jesus Christ. You simply pray and say, "Jesus, forgive me of my sin. I believe you died on the cross and rose again. I confess you as my Lord today." Hi, Rod Hembrew here. One more thing just before we go. Remember, we need your help in the month of May and the month of June. If you can support us, pray about it. That's what God would have you do. It would help us tremendously.